Hi everyone and welcome to Anesthesia Coffee Break. Today we have a special guest, Dr. Uri Harrington. Now, Uri, you're a bit of a special case because I feel like you've just done everything and I think you're going to give us some great advice for this exam preparation. So you're a highly experienced Australian general practitioner who has recently completed advanced training in rural medicine and anesthesia, balancing clinical work in rural and remote settings. So you bring a diverse skill set and a grounded community-oriented perspective to this role. You speak a lot of languages here. So, obviously English, Arabic, Hebrew, Malay. You're dedicated to serving diverse patient groups, creating inclusive and compassionate care environments. And what you've done is you've transitioned to the rural general anesthesia pathway, which reflects your commitment to broadening your clinical impact, but also your readiness to meet the unique challenges of delivering perioperative and critical care in regional communities. So on top of your professional achievements, Uri, you've also you're a devoted family man, balancing life, study with 2 young children, and experience that deeply influenced your approach to preparing for the ANSCA primary exam, which is what we'll be mainly talking about. So I guess your success in passing this exam while still maintaining this demanding lifestyle is probably a massive testament to your discipline, efficiency, and prioritization. So welcome, Yuri. Real pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Thanks, guys.
And also Stan, thanks for headhunting this legend.
No, look, I didn't have to. I think as soon as Uri sort of messaged me to say that he passed the exam, I knew he'd be perfect, especially with his unique set of experiences. I think that's really important. As we continue to sort of evolve and see the exam change, it's not just about the exam, but it's also about the people sitting the exam as well. I think Uri brings about a really unique perspective that we can all learn from.
Yeah. Hey, Uri, we were having a bit of a chat just offline before. Can you give us like a really quick summary of your journey from where you've lived to the different qualifications, just in a very nutshell type approach?
Sure. So including prior to medicine or just...
Yeah, let's go prior. Yeah.
Okay. So finished high school in Tenerife. Spent some time with the military. Got sick of that, and then I ended up working offshore as a deep sea diver, mostly Southeast Asia, but traveled around the world. And then decided to come back, get a real job. Redid high school in Canning College, which is an adult college, and got into physiotherapy. And then actually one of the rotations in physio that I had was in ICU, and I was absolutely hooked at that stage, and I knew I wanted to do something along those lines. So I applied for medicine at the end of physiotherapy, worked as a physiotherapist while completing medicine. And then again, I had a great experience during medicine where I worked with Casey Parker, who's a cool general brewer. And I thought, man, that's amazing. So I actually went down the rural generalist pathway and finished up with ACRM, fellowed with ACRM, worked a couple of years. And then because anaesthetics was only that, I did emergency medicine, anaesthetics, and a bit of general practice and a bit of healthcare. And then, but it was anaesthetics that I really enjoyed. And so decided to apply for the scheme, like anaesthetic scheme jobs. And fortunately, Canberra gave me a position and it was amazing. And so I started that last year, February 2024.
And all at the young age of 21. That's amazing.
Right. That's exactly right.
Here, to get started, so you had the other specialties. You've got your ACRM and your RGA under your belt. Shape your approach to studying for this primary?
Yeah, so I was actually listening to, it's a different podcast. Sorry to name drop someone else's podcast.
But deep breath, yeah?
Yeah, so deep breath.
Anyone who's listening, deep breaths is some of my mates who do amazing work for the final exam preparation. It's just great. It's just great for any anaesthetist listening because they cover such great topics. So, big props to Kate from that.
And in fact, we would say that they actually inspired us to do Anesthesia Coffee Break.
Yeah, Kate Steele told me all the steps to launch this on the same platform they launch it on. So yeah, absolutely. And
kudos to them.
I've known the other Kate since high school days. So yeah, it goes way back.
That's awesome. So there was an episode there with Anna. I don't know her last name, it's or something like that. So she won an award for the part 2. But she explained her approach to it, and it just resonated with me. And one of the things she said there is know your enemy. So before even studying for the exam, I read any document, part one, listened to all of your guys' podcasts regarding the preparation for it, as well as read Rathi's book about the getting ready. And then any registrar that would stand still long enough, I'd talk to them about the part one and try to get as much information as possible. And I divided the preparation so there was the preparation phase where I was just getting resources, but because I was moving to Canberra, I couldn't really commit to study at that stage, but put all the resources together. Then the study plan itself, I initially tried different things based on the advice I got given. But ultimately, what worked well for me was it was a combination of what you guys said, like in terms of the format. So I started with pharmacology first, but then taken on what Rathi recommended in his book, where he just essentially read simple text to more complex text. And I did that in sync with the Mac 95. So I didn't use anyone else's notes. Mm-hmm. But I used the Mac 95 for a scheduling program. Mm-hmm. And I stuck to it pretty religiously.
Yeah.
And then I'd make sure that was covering the LOs while I was reading the text. And in terms of what my study looked like...
Actually, just to give people a bit of context, so Mac 95, I think it's mac95.com, like almost like a compulsory thing for studying the primary exam. Just look it up on Google. That will provide so much of the detail you need. And Lachlan Rathi's book is the first year. Is that the one we're talking about?
So I read that when I was doing my GPA. So my JCTA, I read it was the primary exam that I read for. Yeah.
And he's an examiner, so, you can trust what he's saying is pretty real. So, the primary exam by Lachlan Rathi, if anyone wants to Google that. So, going.
And then at the very start, I aimed for 20 hours a week, but not there. So what my day looked like I'd get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, exercise for 30 minutes because I got told continue exercising. And then from about 5:30 to about 6:30, I would eat breakfast and study. So while eating, I'd go through the previous day's notes, but then eat pretty fast. And then at 6:30, I'd stop, make breakfast for the girls. So I got 2 girls. Well, at that stage when I started, it's 1 girl. And then one of my Grace, my youngest, she was born about midway through the exams, preparing for the exams. And then prepare breakfast for them, go to work, and depending on what was happening at home, try and spend maybe 30, 40 minutes after work. But often I'd have to come back and help out at home. My role, like I spoke to my wife, and there was a specific things that she wanted me to do. So when I was home, I was home. I wasn't studying. I was with the girls. I'd tend to bath the girls, spend some time with them, and then get them off to sleep. And then if I wanted to study afterwards, but half the time I was way too exhausted to study at night. So I just ditched that pretty early on. And then weekends, because I was committed to join the Stan Tay sessions, the running weekends. So that gave me, and same with Blair Mountford. Blair Mountford is do you know Blair?
No, I don't think so.
He's an anaesthetist up in, so he's in Sydney. He's an anaesthetist. He's passionate about teaching. What happened was he's an avid cyclist that he had a pretty terrible accident, since then been wheelchair bound. Yeah. And he's been in the teaching realm since then, and he runs weekend tutorials just on the pure science side of things.
Amazing.
And then Stan, you'd run a session, and it just coincided that it was always different times, and that like my wife would make sure that I'd have that time to sit with you guys. So they gave me time as well. And then I guess the other thing I did is I prioritized information as well. So while I was going through it, and the way I prioritize it is into superficial stuff. So a bit like catching up with mates, you just dress up, put a shirt up, you're good. And then your deep information, it'd be like catching up with a girlfriend or a wife, you put more effort into it. And then very deep in terms of, that's almost like getting ready for a wedding. So the way I saw it is, for example, in respiratory, the superficial stuff will be the anatomy of the pleura. So I spent literally a single day up, and that's it. There's a LO in it. And then the deep stuff would be like surfactant. You need to know it pretty well. And then the very deep stuff would be like compliance.
Yes.
And so throughout the whole process, I was sort of
oh, that's good. That's perspective.
Almost triage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, just to get back, before we keep going on with the your study style, were there any skills or mindsets from the rural medicine side of things that helped you with the exam? Or was it the fact that you just love, like you're not afraid of exams, you can do them, you've got this?
Yeah. So when I was studying for the ACREM exam, so like the STAMPS exams are like a lifestyle exam, and they're pretty tough. They got quite a significant failure rate. And I set up this thing to help out. It was particularly IGM, or internationally trained medical graduates that really, really struggled with it. And so I set it up this online thing like you guys do, but for STAMPS. And one of the things that came out of it wasn't so much the knowledge for these guys, because most of them were like ICU consultants in overseas. And so their knowledge was amazing. It was being okay with being wrong, like being vulnerable, being okay with being vulnerable. And that was one thing that was made sure that Stanley would know. I'm always had my camera on. I was always willing to answer questions. And I was absolutely okay with embarrassing myself in front of the entire country. So, and that's something I thought was really important because, knowing that the primaries do include the virus and, into the SAQs to some extent, and you're going to be judged, right? And then being okay with that and being okay with fumbling on the day. And that was one of the things.
That's such a good thing to say, like, especially if you're coming from overseas and you're already a boss overseas, but even like the more senior we get, the more ego we have. And I feel like that's the enemy of learning. Like if you've got an ego about being wrong and you feel less of a person because of that or whatever, it's the end of it, right? And and it's just such a massive thing to just go, you know what, I'm happy to be wrong and that's fine. I'll learn. And that's right.
Yeah, exactly. And it was one of the things that I encouraged some of the other guys to do as well. Like I think that out of all the things I did, that was probably one of the most important. And then at work, it was very early on. I knew that a lot of the bosses were uncomfortable with the primary exam, but what they were really good at is the clinical importance of the stuff. And that's the stuff I focus on. And it seems like the primary is getting more and more clinical. So that's how I'd sort of ask questions. I'd go, how could this in fact, a situation that was worked out pretty well is about a month before the SAQs, I was doing an awake fiber optic. And I was thinking, how could I compare this to an SAQ? And guess what? It happened. We had an SAQ on the anatomy and of the nasal cavity. And
amazing.
So so those sort of things helped a lot. Like just shifting the way I thought about how to utilize the time that I did at work, and it was. And with my workplace, it's very hard to take off and just do some studying. Because it's a busy place, it's service orientated, and they want to make a anaesthetist, right? Like, so they wanted us while we were there gain that work experience that they're offering, which is amazing. But at the same time, meant that you couldn't regularly take off and do a bit of study.
And just to reiterate that, like to make everything a learning opportunity, if you pick up a drug, at least a couple of times in your list, recite the pharmaceutics connection to that drug. If you have something unique, try to make it a short answer question. If you see a different liver patient, think about the liver. Just whatever you can do, anchor the cases and what you're doing to some level of exam practice. And that sounds like what you did and really well rewarded, because it will come up.
Yep.
Yeah. And particularly the two top drawers of the anesthetic trolley, the drugs in there, you just have to know backwards. Like it's a given. Yeah.
Hey, Uri, can I ask? So you got into Canberra probably in September, October 2023. Is that right?
No, December.
Okay. So you knew quite late in terms of which place you're going to be. Because one of the things I think that a lot of, our listeners will want to know is, as soon as you find out that you've got a job, how do you go about deciding which sitting you're going to sit for? Like, how did you decide leading up to it that, all right, March 2025 is going to be when I'm going to sit the exam? Like, why didn't you say to yourself, all right, maybe I'll go for August 2025? What made you decide March 2025 was the way to go? And I think you talked about a bit about the preparation phase. How, and also including in your answer, how long it took for you to sort of decide with that preparation phase that March was going to be the one to sit for.
Yeah. So that again was done in discussion with registrars, consultants, and the fact is the stats were against me. Like parents typically fail the exam.
Correct.
And I was totally okay with that.
Yeah.
But I felt like August was a bit too soon because I wasn't able to get the hours in most other people were.
Yeah.
And so I felt I would have been undercooked by that stage.
Yeah.
But I felt March, at the very least, my plan was to sit, hopefully get invited to a Viva. And then at the very least, the next sitting, I wouldn't have to do the MCQs.
Oh, okay. If you didn't get through this sitting. Yeah. And I think that's really important. To sort of say, and I don't want to sort of use the word fail anymore. I think, with the progression of, I think how the exam is going through, I think the realization is that some people do need more than one attempt to get through the exam. And that was your mindset, wasn't it? Yeah, that was your mindset.
Correct.
With two young kids, or with one young kid and one along the way, that if March didn't happen, you would have used that as a stepping stone towards August 2025.
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, I had a separate study plan for what that would look like.
Oh, did you?
Already.
Okay.
Yeah, I did.
That is very well planned.
Yeah, because the first part up until October was just putting, reading broadly. Because I found actually going back to the set text and reading simple text like PK made easy, and then West and all that sort of stuff gave me broad understanding. Like I covered the topics well, I understood them well, and then I felt like it was more efficient to cover MCQs, SAQs, and Vivas all at the same time.
Yep.
Whereas, and then making my own notes, I felt that was quite important. And while I was making notes, I would write a single page summary for the SAQs. I'd write flashcards for what I anticipated for MCQs. And then it wasn't until later that I started it was after I got invited, after I sat the SAQs that I sort of shifted things towards Viva, sort of true understanding and proper clinical application and how things change with, changing, the typical question I'll ask you is to draw a CBC pressure waveform, what happens in Tempano, what happens, and being able to explain that, right? And that happened more towards after the SAQs. But that did mean, because I was reading the set text and I was focusing more on understanding, so I could hang a lot of memory on that. But as well as there wasn't much of a transformation between the SOQs and the Vivas. I was pretty. I felt like if I had the Vivas straight afterwards,
You'd been okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just that I didn't communicate it. It's like I got a lot slicker at communicating ideas as I practiced. Yeah.
Hey, just to sidestep a bit, Uri, were there any study techniques or resources that everyone else seemed to love, but you found just didn't work for you?
Yeah, the notes. So there's a lot of notes out there.
Yeah.
And I found that those people wrote notes to help trigger their own memories.
Yes.
Yeah. And I found that it lacked that sort of, it was almost like just trying to write back someone else's memory. And so I gave that up early on in the piece.
Yes. And I think that's a trap, isn't it? I think we see that all the time where people now feel like you can be over-resourced because everyone wants to be kind, generous. Everyone gives their notes off to the next cohort. And I think everyone sees all these notes like that's the answer to passing the exam. But as you realize, it's actually not the notes per se. It's actually the creation of those notes. That's where you get that learning from. And I think, look, some notes are great. And I remember, when I went through, I think there were James's notes that were still floating around that were absolutely amazing. I think he's at St. V's, Vincent, but he does a bit of mainly sort of private now. I think you've seen those notes as well, Lara. And I think now, Ketamine Nightmares is the tenant in terms of, his short answer and notes as well. But I think the key thing is you've realized it's generating your own. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you do have someone else's notes, annotate them, make it your own. I definitely do that for it got an electronic for the final exam, and I had to make my own cards based on the notes were a great base to trigger thoughts and trigger questions, but I had to write it out myself, otherwise it just wouldn't stick. Hey, how did you manage the comparison with others and the feeling of falling behind? I think we all face that if someone knows something particularly better than us, or how'd you...
So that, and actually again, talking about how being okay with and being embarrassed, I was totally okay with being embarrassed with my colleagues as well. And then if they had one of my study buddies, she was amazing, and she'll come up with this beautiful answer, and it's like, oh, that's amazing. And that me fumbling an answer compared to hers meant that almost that stress of messing up an answer so badly made me, almost committed her answer to my memory, or just changed the way I thought about something.
Yeah. Now, I think when you first started off, everyone was telling you, oh, you need to do your 10,000 hours, which equates to about 20 hours a week. But one of the emails that you sent to me was, after you passed the exam, was that you actually did it with less. In fact,
a lot less. Yeah,
20% less. And I think that's what everyone is here to find out.
Yeah.
What did you do? And obviously, it's not going to work for everyone. But I think that's one of the key things is that, there is a way to actually study with less hours. So how did it look like? What did you change?
So from February to October, it was that sort of routine that I told you about. I was as much as I could, I was stuck to that routine, waking up at 5, study, with the exception of nights. I just couldn't study at nights. And nights in Canberra are super busy. We got 5 bosses on board, and there have been times where all 5 bosses are in.
Wow.
It is a busy place.
Wow.
And so it's, so there was no study. One of the examiners, in fact, she goes, man, don't even bother studying it at nights. Nights, just rest.
Yeah.
And then try to do as much as you can when you're recovering and pick up after. And then, so being pretty disciplined about getting up every day. Study.
What time? What time are you getting up in the morning?
5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that for the whole period or? Yep.
The whole period. Yeah.
That's a game changer, right? If your best hours are for yourself, from whatever 5 till You have to go to work.
Mm.
That I only did it for the Viva sessions, but that transition to that was a game changer for the Viva thing.
Now, Uri, it's all relative, right? Because I would probably sleep up about 1 or 2 in the morning. Okay? So getting up at 5 o'clock would mean that, I'm only doing like 3 hours of sleep. So I think for context, right? Even though you're waking up at 5, how many hours of sleep were you getting a day?
So my daughter, she loves going to sleep late. It takes after my wife. So she typically go to bed about 10 o'clock.
All right. So you'd be getting about 6 hours of sleep a day. Is that right?
Yeah. It would be, about probably 6.
6. Okay. Yeah. All right. And I think that's fair. I think if you can, be disciplined and sort of work around a 6-hour schedule, and, there are going to be some sacrifices to be made that you can actually maximize the amount of time. Yeah. So discipline, 5 o'clock in the morning. And then you would study for how many hours? Or you said you would exercise?
1 hour.
Breakfast, 1 hour. Yeah.
And then study for an hour. But it was, there was no distraction. So it was early before everybody woke up. Yeah. And there was I was very, very focused for that hour.
Yeah.
And then at work, if I could spend, it was about a month or so before my daughter was born, the in-laws came over from Zimbabwe. And so that meant I could spend usually about between 40 minutes to an hour after work, which was really, really useful. And then come back after that. And then again, anytime I sat down, it was very, very focused.
Yeah.
Not checking WhatsApp or Facebook or
getting it done. Now, I have to ask, right? Because a lot of times, when people study, they like studying for longer periods of time, like 3-4 hours. But if you're only going to do an hour, what can you achieve? Or what did you set yourself out to achieve in that hour? Did you decide to do short answer questions and then review it? Or did you decide to do read a textbook and then write some notes? How did you structure that hour?
Yeah, so from February to October, it was reading text. I didn't even touch, I very occasionally did SAQs between those periods and submitted to the examiners. But the priority was getting through the textbooks and trying to gain understanding. So, for example, my goal would have been to cover one of the chapters in the books and summarize it. And then I'd do that. That would be my goal for that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And then, so during a week, you would probably do, with that hour each day, probably let's say 5 hours. Assuming that there'll be just some days where you just can't, wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning for whatever reason.
If it was working days, I'd wake up no matter how I felt.
Oh, really? How about for nights? Would you still do 5 o'clock?
Nights? No. So nights, there was no study.
Yeah, no study. Yeah. And then the rest of the time, because I think you said you could only do maybe approximately 15 hours a week in total.
Yeah.
How did that look like in terms of your study week?
Weekends, I'd still get up at 5, get some study done. The girls would wake up, make some breakfast, spend time with them. I typically take Alice to one of the indoor swimming pools and we'd go out swimming. And then when I got back, it was a time for either your session or Blair's session.
Yeah.
And then, if there was some time at the end of the day, I'd read a book or, get Alice off to sleep.
Yeah.
And then if I still had some energy, I'd try and get some study done, but often I was just exhausted.
Understandable. Yeah. And so look, I'm hearing discipline is really one of the big key habits, I think, that can really help you maximize your time.
Yeah. And the other thing to say is remember, Stan, I was saying just before we're sitting there, SAQs, I put in the time that I could. And if I didn't get through it, I was totally fine with that. Remember how we had that chat? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just so that acceptance about, not feeling like, you're having to sort of complete that. Because I think you're right, having that negative aspect of feeling that you're not able to sort of complete something. Sometimes actually, whilst you have that because you feel like you want to be encouraged to perhaps do more. For you, you felt that wasn't a positive sort of behavior or response.
Yeah, that's right. Like I was half expecting not to get through the exams. I felt I was ready, as ready as I could be. And I spent the time that I could and the time I was willing to commit to the exams, but also being absolutely okay with the fact that probably wouldn't get through because that's where the stats are. But I already had a plan for that.
Yeah. And so, so what I'm hearing is discipline, use as much outside resources as you can. And I think you talked about my sessions, Blair sessions.
Yeah.
And then any other tips that you would say that would help?
So what I did worked for me, and it could have been because of what I did or inspired by what I did. There's a thing in Rathy's book saying, take advice from other people, but realize they may have got through despite of what they did.
Yes.
And I guess for me, working on understanding was really, really important because my memory is not great.
Yeah.
So I had, that was what I could hang memories on, is understanding. And
understanding is such an interesting concept. I don't mean, I want to hear your point of view about education and, this idea of understanding, because we always talk about, understanding concepts. And for me, I'm going to be honest with you, like the way that I learn, and obviously there's a lot of cultural aspects in terms of how, we learned back when I was growing up. It's a lot of rote learning. And from that rote learning is where then we sort of, created that understanding. But I want to sort of hear from
there's only so much you can understand about certain numbers that you just have to remember. So I guess I get the point that if you understand why a volatile blood gas partition is something, you can hang it on there. But there's certain, and I think there is understanding. There's linking things to other things, comparative numbers. You can less than that, that's more than that, and then there's active learning where you're trying to reproduce something. So I feel like in some parts of the exam, there's only so much understanding. It's just part of attaching other learning methods to this. So
and I guess
funny. Just a funny sideline. There are certain memory techniques I use to help me.
Yes.
And I put stories behind things. So I think I mentioned to you that the way I remembered all the saturated vapor pressures was the old chap coming through the anaesthetic bay, right? With the high blood pressure.
Oh,
did I tell you about it?
No, tell us.
Oh, right. So this elderly fella, he's in the anaesthetic bay and his blood pressure is 156. So that, that's the sevoflurane. As it comes through, it increases to about the 170s, which is enflurane, and then it shoots up, right? And then it's about 220, which is isoflurane, and then 240, which is halothane.
Wow.
And then it bottoms out to about 20, where it's a methoxyflurane. Because we're just taking anesthetic agent.
That's a great story.
A linked memory.
Yeah, I know.
Story.
Now I'm going to ask you, right? But how about desflurane? Because you're not going to get a pressure of 669 with desflurane. So how did you include that in your story?
Because it's the devil, right? So 669.
The patient died and he went off to hell where he met the devil with a pressure of 669. That's great. That's fantastic. But I think that's a great way. I mean, telling stories is a wonderful way to create memory. But I think, for all of us, when we hear, our teachers, our examiners say, don't just learn. You need to understand concepts. I think, even for myself, like I find that such a nebulous idea in terms of what that actually looks like. Like, is it discussing it with someone else? Is it presenting it, teaching it? That's what I find really sort of challenging, beyond sort of rote learning and then reaching that understanding.
Yeah. And I guess the other thing that happened during the course of my year, I'd submit, whenever I had time to, I'd sit down and do ASAQ, submit it to one. We got 4 exams. We were really lucky in Cameron. We got 4 exams. And I'd submitted to one of the examiners, and one of them, I did this question about the blood supply to the fetus, and it was one of those explain the I think it was like the diffusion across the fetus or something along those lines. Anyway, I wrote it up. All the information there was factually correct, but she only gave me a 2 out of 5. She goes, "That's because you didn't demonstrate why this question is important." And that was actually a game changer for me, because that's the writing just important points, accurate points will only get you so far. And it changed my approach to the SAQs a little bit. So one of the things I did was always look, when I was looking through the SAQs on the 1 minute reading time, was going, okay, why are they asking this question? Is there anything particular I need to acknowledge? Yeah. Like clinically important or, yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Uri, what did the final month of revision look like for you?
Yeah. So, prior to the SAQs, it was just from the time I finished the Melbourne course. So I went to the Melbourne course, which was a way to ascertain if I've covered everything.
Just on that point, right? Because I've always got to ask these questions from registrars, and I'm sure people are listening as well to the podcast. At that Melbourne course, what was it that made you feel, okay, I'm ready? Or did you have that feeling that a lot of people also come out with, they go, like, I've got perhaps some doubts? Or did you feel like, yeah, actually, this is stuff that I know already, and I'm actually okay for the March exam?
So for the most part, it was really reassuring. Like there wasn't much new. The one thing it did highlight, so there's, they run a few Viva practices that that just did highlight that at that stage I was totally unprepared for the Vivas. And I would have to change the way I think and do things for that. But in terms of knowledge, I was okay.
Yep.
And it wasn't until, so from that point on, I just did SAQs and submitted a lot of SAQs to examiners. And then used their essay course to really find out if I was, because there's the essay course that runs about a month before the exams.
Yep.
And then that helped me just consolidate my exam technique, which was poor. Like I didn't think that my style of writing SAQs was particularly effective, but I figured it's easier to change that in a short period of time than to try and still continue building up knowledge. So that's why the revision part was building on exam technique, working on that, as well as just practicing questions to time. And that's all it was for the revision periods.
Do you know the essay course, right? What was it exactly that you found really useful or help you channel your energies towards the right strategies?
Yeah. So one, you do an exam equivalent to an exam day to time.
So you do a whole 15 questions
every single day.
Every single day. How many days was this essay course?
5 days.
So you did 45 questions in 5 days. That is insane. Insane.
It is, yeah. And by the end of the week, you just want to murder Gary. He's just the most loveliest human being on the planet. But by the end of that week, he's scratching the relationship.
Wow. And he would mark all the papers on that day?
I know. So what he did is he gave us what he thought were reasonable answers.
Oh,
so
yourself.
Yeah, and you mark it. So you could submit it to him, but that was actually a really valuable resource in itself, So you got equivalent to 5 exams worth of answers. Plus, there was there was a few sessions where we're just doing 2-minute questions, and he gave answers for that too. And that was that was really, really good. And that got definitely got the endurance there.
If you don't have the chance to go to the assay course, like you can manufacture this with your mates. This is what we used to do. Just, every evening or what set of evenings you go, we're going to do some proper exams. We've got the examiner's report. We can do this. It's great to do it in a course with an actual examiner or facilitating, but you got to get that endurance up.
Were you able to do a full 15 questions 5 days in a row?
Oh no, not at all.
I know. I could maybe do it for I would say a week or two with the full 15.
It's not impossible, but we probably didn't think it was necessary. It was too hard. I don't know.
And I think for the parents out there, like going to one of these courses, it just means that there's that week that focus. The family will look after the kids. They promise not to burn the house down while they're away. And it does gives you a really focused week that you work on these SAQs, get some sleep, not have to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. All these things that most parents probably wouldn't have the opportunity to. So, highly, highly recommend. Doing any course, really, it doesn't matter. It's just time that you get to be a bit selfish.
Yeah. Hey, can I ask you, during this whole phase, was there any moment where you felt, oh, geez, I don't think it's going to work out?
Throughout the whole thing. To be honest, I was like, oh, yeah. So throughout that whole period, I felt, I'm going to give it my best crack.
Yeah.
And but at the same time, I was okay with not getting through.
So you always had that in the back of your mind that it might not work out. Because I, psychologically, I always advise that when you go into this exam, you have to go in, fully committed, have no doubts about it, because you don't want that playing at the back of your mind, because what that can do is it can give you a sense of complacency to say, oh, even if this doesn't work out, I might, I've got always the one after. And so you don't, I think, commit yourself fully to the task, even though, your aim is always going to be that goal of that exam. But obviously it did sound like that was an issue for you.
No. Well, I think that there's another way of looking at it. Being okay with failing it. For example, on the vivas, I was checking into the vivas, and instead of the check-in was downstairs, so I went upstairs, right? And I got told, oh, just go downstairs. As I was going downstairs, there was this young gentleman in the suit who I thought was a registrar, and I go, "Hi, mate, the check-in is downstairs," and he goes, "Oh, I'm one of the examiners." And guess what? My last session, he was sitting there.
That's probably Simon Roberts. He looks young.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh man, good on him. He's must have smashed through the exams and got there much earlier than me. Anyway, so
yeah.
So at that stage, I was going, oh man, I'm embarrassed, and I messed up that Viva just probably because of it.
Yeah.
But at the same token, in my mind, it's like, you know what? I'm okay. Whatever happens. And then the next Bible was a really good one.
Yeah. Hey, what support systems do you reckon made the biggest difference? Home, work, elsewhere?
So I actually, before even applying for anesthetics, I got my wife to listen to your the preparation for the interviews, the application, but also the preparation for the Part 1 exams. And I got her to listen to it.
And this is Lahiru's ABCs of Anesthesia podcast.
Yes.
Yep. The plug for that one out there for all those people who are listening to this podcast but haven't gone to anesthetics yet.
Yeah. And because I wanted her to really understand and appreciate just how much of a commitment it was going to be.
Yeah.
And then from the start, it was almost like a negotiation, what were her expectations for me and what I needed to at least have a go at the exam. And and so we, she would wake up throughout the night, looking after the babies. And,
She's going
and
to exams just like you, and to set expectations with your partner is everything.
Yeah, 100%. That's made a huge difference.
Looking back, is there anything you'd do differently?
It would have been like at the very start, I tried doing, I think it was good to try different methods of studying for the exams. So initially I tried to do SAQ based and just I found it didn't work at all for me. And then I tried different things using people's notes, and ultimately I came to the conclusion that going to the set text was the best thing for me. So having that experience was valuable.
Going through the website,
so you're trying different approaches to the exam was really valuable. Like I think it would have been nice just to go straight and be on the right path from the initially, but I guess you need to try different things in order for them to work. Yeah.
Yep.
So not really.
I think that's really important because it sounded very much like, SAQs didn't work for you. And I think, when Lara and I went through, that was the advice we were given. Isn't that right, Lara? Just to do the SAQs.
And that worked for me really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. And it can work. And so, like one of the registrars that sat at the year before me, that's exactly what she did. And she smashed them, like she did really, really well. So it's not to say that's the wrong approach. It's just
what works for you. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Correct. Yeah. And I think that's what I'm starting to realize more and more as I do this, my involvement of advice and understanding of the trainees, that everyone is individual. Everyone's on their own journey. Everyone is unique in the way that they learn. And I think the big thing for me is you yourself need to understand, which was what you've done, is how you learn and what creates the best environment for you to maximize your ability. And I think everyone's a little bit different in terms of that respect. And not everyone's going to fit into a box or a silo with the strategies that are always given that say, hey, you got to do this to pass, right? I really do think it's very different for everyone.
Yeah. Or just on your question, a valuable resource to see, the WhatsApp chat groups that you set up every exam period? That was really valuable. Like those guys talking about MCQs and there's actually one of my, I had multiple study groups, one local and then a couple of online. And there was a guy studied for the most part through my workplace for the exam, but our shifts were constantly conflicting. So it was really handy having an online study group as well, which was good. And just we put up once a week and went through. So in the revision period was just SAQs and going through exam. Yeah.
Now, can I ask you, since you passed the exam, the primary exam, like, have you seen the way that, you've changed yourself sort of approaching day-to-day, your life in training now, and also perhaps how you're giving your advice to the next set of trainees who are preparing for the exam?
So yes, I have actually. I'm doing an ICU placement at the moment, so it's really just nice to focus on the medicine. It's so nice to rock up to work, use the opportunity to learn, become a better clinician. It's and not worry about having this exam loom over you. And then I guess in terms of helping other guys through, which I'm always keen to do, acknowledging everybody is different, and what works for me may not work for them, and then let them come up with their own conclusions. So there's, I guess there's certain things I was really, really strong at in the exam, and that's something that's what I like going through. And there will be things that are weak on. I'll just, be upfront and say, oh, look, this is not a topic I'm particularly strong with, but we can talk about it anyway. Yeah.
Hey, so besides, having that really great communication with your partner and, setting expectations and having the roster, anything else that you could give advice to someone juggling training, parenthood, study?
Yeah. So I guess it's putting, so to begin with, when you're applying, realizing it's a huge commitment. 2, putting in the hours you're willing to put in. And then mothers out there, honestly, it's so much harder to be a mum doing this exam. So shout out to everybody out there that's a mum doing this. It's so much more. It's very, very difficult. So at least one of the trainees at my workplace, she's gone part-time in order to help prepare for the primary within the equivalent of 1 year. And that's something that you may need to do.
Yeah.
And then really working with what you've got, so do communication with partner, spending some time, like consistency is probably the most important thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, final question then. What's your go-to coffee order and your guilty pleasure study snack?
Oh, man. So going to coffee at home, it's just a black, so like a double shot black coffee.
Yeah, that's what you need.
At work, it's a piccolo. Guilty snack. I love dark chocolate. So, the Lindt.
Yeah.
85%. Yeah.
That's great. Lindt is great. That's no other chocolate worth eating, from my opinion. I used to always have, it's pretty random, but my partner bought me a dumpling steamer, so I'd have steamed dumplings that were
wow.
at the end of almost every study session.
Yeah,
with some crispy chili prawn. Just best. I think that set me up for some bad dietary habits into the future.
Oh, man. I had plenty of dietary. So I exercised up until the October, but after that, when I was close to the exams, I stopped exercising. I think I put on about 10 kilos during that period. Yeah, so there's a lot of bad habits during the primaries.
Yeah. Well, hey, look, we've just kind of run out of time, but it's been such a great chat, Uri. You're very inspirational. I think you've just given so much good, down to earth advice about how to get through this in your own experience. And yeah, just a real pleasure having you on. So thanks so much for being on here, Uri.
Sure, no worries. Thank you.
Anything else, Dan?
No, fantastic. I think the opportunity to talk to trainees, especially ones like yourself, Uri, is just, invaluable, because I think as time goes on, what I'm seeing is, we're all changing, we're all evolving, and it's really important for us to hear what the most up-to-date feedback is about their experience of the exam. I think what I've realized is the reality that Lara and I went through, and I hate to say it, Lara, but it's almost like 15 years ago, isn't it?
Are we dinosaurs?
It's over a decade ago. Yeah. Like the same things that we went through is very different from how today's trainees, how the exam is set up, what you guys are going through. And I think the challenges are unique, and we need to explore that, and we need to learn, we need to get better. And that's all about, what we're all about. It's about just trying to, move forward and be better each day.
And really just glad to hear that, people just keep paying it forward. It happened in our time and it happens now. I'm just so happy to see that people just keep paying all their, their notes, their tips, their study group tips, so, whatever they paid forward to help the next generation get through. So thanks, everyone. Thanks very much for coming on here, Uri. Thanks to everyone for watching and listening. Please share with anyone who might be interested in getting through this primary exam. See you guys next time. Bye. Now, what's new with ABCs of Anesthesia is that we're forming a whole bunch of very comprehensive courses for every stage of your anesthetic journey, from medical student to procedural skills, from foundations in anesthesia, as well as really important exam lectures and clinical anesthesia courses as well.